Hey out there, this is July 24th, 2015. I'm in San Francisco and it's just a little before 1 West Coast time. This is the St. Francis Yacht Club. See all these vacant yachts? Look at this. Just waiting for somebody to sail them. And over here to the west in the background you see the Golden Gate Bridge. Some of the marina front houses. Well, today I wanted to talk about a few things, current events, but also for anybody that wonders, about the evil people going to hell. It's important to understand that people choose where they go from here. But here's the thing about it. Everybody has the capability to imagine a perfect world down to the smallest detail. That's just part of being honest. We are all able to imagine a world filled with equality. And to deny that is to lie. So when you talk about these things, you heaven and hell, equality, inequality, you've got to talk about honesty and just people's willingness to be honest and say, am I treating others the way I want to be treated or am I not? It's that simple. Am I willing to trade places with anybody I have anything to do with in terms of business, let's say? And in any other regard, of course. Well, you shouldn't cheat on your spouse because you don't want your spouse cheating on you. What's happened in America and all over the world is a very tragic thing, this wealth disparity that has grown. And a lot of people are very content and happy, the status quo establishment. People who the very unequal system has worked very well for. And they really don't want to see a change. So you can understand, since they love their lives in a wicked world, which is essentially a kind of hell due to its inequality, due to its injustice, then you understand that they would not be happy in a world where things were equal. And so this is why they end up going to hell. It's all very logical and simple, because God's not going to make anybody go to a place they don't want to go. And since they love their lives in a very unequal world, a very unjust world, then what is right and fair and just and proper is that they go to a world that's like the one that they are enjoying currently. The difference is that they're going to be around only people of their own caliber, their own mentality. And they're not going to have people that long for righteousness, let's say, justice, equality. They're not going to have those kind of people to bully around. Whatever has given them the ability to do that. Well, it's typically laws or lack thereof, more likely. And so laws are like rules and regulations. And rules and regulations are all supposed to be based on morality, ethics. But anytime you talk about things like the Golden Rule and somebody will label you religious, they'll say, oh, well, that's ridiculous. Anything moral or anything ethical has to do with religion, so they just throw it out the window instead of considering the viability and the justified nature of ethics and morality and rules and regulations and laws that we all abide by. not to be mandated to abide by, but to willingly abide by guidelines. That you do it because it's the right and proper thing to do. So in light of the fact that all the laws are supposed to be based on morality, you can't say that, you know, teaching morality in school has no place. Teaching ethics in school has no place, since people come out of school, and even before they come out of school, while they're in school, they are supposed to abide by the laws of the land, and if they don't, then they can go to jail, pay fines, etc., etc. But right now, we don't really have any laws that make any sense in this country. And none with any teeth that keep the wicked people at bay from essentially oppressing the decent people. And so they're allowed basically to run roughshod over the decent people. And if given a chance, a lot of the people that are, you know, not fitting in, they're disenfranchised with the system. If they had a chance, they might be just as wicked. And so these are the kind of people, they're going to end up going to hell too, because their hearts are unclean. It's like being covetous. You know, you should not want what belongs to somebody else. That's improper. It's okay to want things for yourself. It's okay to want things for others. But it's just not okay to want to just take what already belongs to somebody else. And even if you had a chance and you could get away with taking things from others that have more than you shouldn't do it, because of the fact that you want to value your conscience. You want to value your integrity, your honor. And this is a very personal issue, that each one of us have to decide to value those things or not value those things of our own free will, our own free accord. And if we fail to do that, then we don't have values, essentially. If we don't decide really what's important to us, what we treasure up in our hearts and in our minds, our spirits and our souls, what is really, really important to us, then we lose our bearings, we lose our way, and we become like a rudderless ship, I would say. And a rudderless ship, of course, ends up on the rocks because nobody is able to steer it. So it's very important to learn that, you know, you want to value your integrity, your honor, your character, and your conscience. So you've got to conform of your own free will, not because somebody's making you do it, but because you want to do it. And I have decided a long time ago that the only way people can be happy and free, if they are willing that everybody else be happy and free. I often joke with people, I say, you know, how you doing? They say, I say, oh, I'm doing perfect. I say, no, I'm kidding, because really, I'll be perfect, I'll be happy when the last person on earth is happy. And I personally really feel that way, is that that's the only time I'm going to be content, is once everybody on this planet is content. Once everybody is not suffering unnecessarily. That's a very key point to understand, is that there's a lot of suffering that humans go through. That's necessary suffering. It's across the board. It's suffering from it being too hot, for example, from it being too cold. You might be suffering from a natural disaster. You might be suffering from a disease, or, you know, disease of a loved one. There's a lot of ways we suffer that we all have to go through. Accidents are another example. But the kind of suffering that really bugs me is the kind of suffering that's discriminatory. And it picks on people because they somehow are not fitting into the system, they're not working in the system, they're not pleasing the system. And this current system is something, believe me, you don't want to fit into. You don't want really it to work too well for you. You want to understand that it's got a long way to go before we've got heaven on earth here. And it's so important to understand the role that money plays in everything we think, say, and do. Our lives revolve around money because a monetary-based reality has been imposed upon us from birth. And it's been foisted on us, and we don't have a choice. We're not born free, we're born beholden. And if we don't please our overlords in some way to get ahead and learn to fit in and conform to this system, well, then we are going to be what the system calls a failure. And we are rejected by the system, and people that fit into the system and seek to please the system, seek to be the status quo, seek to be part of the establishment, then we're outcasts if you don't fit into the system, which is contrary to the thinking of the Creator. And I think the best way to think of how the Creator likely thinks is just consider either yourself as a parent or your parents, or consider any good parent and what their will is for their children. And any parent, no matter how many children they've got, if they're a decent parent, worth of salt, then they will love their children equally, even if one child is a stinker and one is, stellar. It doesn't matter. They will be unhappy with the stinker's behavior, we know that, but they're not going to love the stinker any less. And it's the same way in this world, and it's important that we understand this. This comes to this love your enemy philosophy that is taught in the scriptures. To understand that the heart and mind of God is a lot different. It's a lot more advanced and a lot more intelligent and wise than the human heart and mind and spirit and soul. And so it's so important that we're always reaching to understand what this is all about. And if you look through history, there's always been these wars, always been these bloody revolutions, when periods of time when oppression got too bad and people started hating each other. They started hating each other to the point of violence, and then, a great fire is sparked by one small flame, as everybody knows. And so that's how you end up with a full-blown war. Somebody's relative gets killed or hurt, and they're out there and seeking revenge, vengeance, and it has a chain reaction effect. But note, the reason this time period in history is different from all other periods in history is because we have so much knowledge, so much information, and it's available to anybody that just takes a few minutes and goes online anywhere in the world today. And if you notice that there has not been a successful bloody revolution that really took, let's say, because we would not have this recurring theme of wealth disparity and poverty and throwing people to the dogs that didn't fit into the system like we have now. The poor are discriminated against as if they did something wrong. Well, if they're lazy and they're unwilling to work, then they did something wrong. But if they're not lazy and they're willing to work, then they should be treated fairly with justice and mercy and equity. And understand that all human beings are equal, in fact, in the sight of God. That whatever contribution we make, it doesn't require great education to make an important contribution to the welfare of humanity. For example, a carpenter building, one of the most important things we value is housing, because it's an essential human need, does not need a high school diploma to properly construct a home. That same carpenter or builder, he may not be able to afford to buy a house, likely cannot afford to purchase his own home, and essentially is stuck renting in perpetuity.